Hello, my name is Peter Walker-Birch with the very first video podcast for Clinical Placement 1 in 2015. I sincerely hope that you are all very well and have had a good start to your clinical placement as student radiographers. Firstly, I should like to apologise for the lateness in getting this first video podcast published. I was expecting to get it published yesterday, the birthday of the very first video podcast for Clinical Placement 1. But alas, it has been quite hectic here in the medical imaging team with copious amounts of preparation and marking to do. This task was made even more difficult when, in the best traditions of the film With Neil and I, starring Paul McGann, Richard E. Grant and the late Richard Griffiths, I went on holiday by mistake to Beverley in Yorkshire. If you haven't seen With Neil and I would suggest that you might like to give it a try, as it is a classic cult student British comedy that follows the lives and adventures of two struggling and unemployed actors in London in late 1969, who go on holiday by mistake to the Lake District. There is some fine acting in this film, I have to say, with lots of very memorable scenes and wonderfully rich quotations, many of which come rolling off the tongue when the opportunity presents itself, including Hamlet and Baudelaire. I introduced my 12-year-old daughter, Alice, to this particular film a couple of months ago so that she could understand some of the cultural references I often make to this film. I have to say she loved it. Now, you may have noticed the opening graphics at the start of this video podcast, complete with an old-fashioned TV set and 1970s wallpaper. Now, following on from the success that we have had with these video podcasts last year, I thought it would be nice to spend a little time updating the graphics to recreate a period in time that I absolutely adore, the 1980s. Now, one of the reasons that I love the 1980s so much, and the reason for my interest in using computers, was the Sinclair ZX Spectrum 48K and the wonderful sound that it made when loading up programs from cassette. Now, this wonderful home computer was a present that I received from my parents in the Christmas of 1982 and was instrumental in my becoming a computer programmer, along with the BBC microcomputer that I learned to program at school in 1981 at the tender age of 10 years old. In fact, I was the only student in the school allowed to spend the last year of junior school dedicated entirely to programming computers. Great fun. The 1980s were a golden age for the home computer. The ZX Spectrum in particular led to a massive boom in home computing with some wonderful games like Manic Miner and my favourite, Jet Set Willy. Though the Jet Set Willy screen that you can see on screen here is a concept mock-up screen for a radiology-based version of the game that I should like to create one day just for the sheer fun of it. Out of interest, I still have a box in the loft with my ZX Spectrum carefully preserved in it for posterity. The only family heirloom that I possess, really, apart from my 1936 first edition book of poetry by A.E. Housman. Actually, there has been something of a resurgence of interest in the ZX Spectrum of late, and I'm getting rather excited as in July I should receive a remake of the ZX Spectrum platform in the form of the newly developed Sinclair ZX Spectrum Vega, which is hoping to introduce the world of the ZX Spectrum to a new generation of kids. Though, to be honest, I suspect it will probably be bought by nostalgic middle-aged geeks like myself. The kids won't get a look in. Anyway, enough of me getting excited about the 1980s. The reason for this video podcast is to wish you all the very best of luck on this tremendously exciting journey that you have all started. I am hoping to produce a video podcast each Wednesday to provide you with some support and hopefully a friendly face over the duration of your clinical practice experience. Starting from next week, the podcast that you will receive will be based on various TV quiz shows from the 1980s and onwards. They are being designed to assist you in preparing for your tripartite assessment that takes place in September. Now, the idea behind the quizzes is to get you thinking about the medical terminology that you're using, justifying radiology requests, looking at alternative projections and alternative modalities, fracture terminology, and radiology safety and optimization. All important aspects that will be assessed in the tripartite assessment. Now, as promised, I am hoping to produce a video to support the image evaluation part of the tripartite assessment using the DOG system that you were introduced to during the lab sessions at the start of the module. Please do take the time to take part in the quizzes. I will provide you with the answer sheets and the answers to all the activities each week so that you can start to focus your revision early in the placement. Now, this is week 2 of clinical placement, and I wanted to draw your attention to the activities in the module guide. As I mentioned at the start of the module, we have planned a number of activities for you to do whilst in clinical practice. The idea being to give you some focus to help you get the most out of your experience in the clinical practice setting. This, in turn, has the advantage of better preparing you for the tripartite assessment too. So please do give some of these activities a go. Experience suggests that those people who do engage with these activities do really well in the tripartite assessment. Now, the first activity is around drawing a large A3 map of your department, putting on it various ionizing radiation equipment, as well as ionizing radiation protection equipment, such as CR and DR plate readers, lead equivalent aprons, gonad shields, etc. Now, if you look in the module guide, it gives you some information to collect, such as the make, the model, and age of the equipment that you're using, as well as things like filtration, tabletop material, and maximum and minimum exposure factors. It might also be useful to become familiar with the safe working load of the equipment, as there will be a limit to the weight that these tables can support. Now, the idea behind this activity is really to get you to become more familiar with the radiology department and the equipment used within it. This could or should tie in with the orientation to work forms that you should be filling out whenever you are introduced to a new work area within the radiology department and the wider hospital environment. Now, should you wish, please feel free to send me a copy of your diagram, and I can put them all together in a gallery, either on Blackboard or, maybe even better, in a future video podcast that'll be there for posterity. Some of you will already have organised your first bipartite session with your mentors. Now, you normally have your first bipartite with your mentor at around week 4 of the placement. You will meet up with your mentor and they will complete a formative feedback sheet with you. Now, the bipartite allows your mentor to provide you with constructive feedback on your progress so far. Now, this process will help to identify areas of strengths as well as areas where you may be struggling to achieve your placement outcomes. Now, this will act as a springboard really to help develop your personal objectives or put in place an appropriate action plan to help you achieve the placement outcomes. Remember, there are a wide variety of things you can use to evidence your progress. For more information, take a look at page 35 to 36 of the clinical documentation that is available on the MSc programme site. If you have any queries, please feel free to drop me an email or a tweet. In addition to the podcast that will be released over the next few weeks, I just wanted to remind you that I did release other activities and resources for you to engage with and to help focus your studies. Now, these activities related to the very important area of radiographic anatomy. I have provided you with some images that you can label up to help you revise your radiographic anatomy for a range of radiographic examinations pertinent to your first clinical placement. At the end of the placement, you should be able to accurately and confidently articulate this radiographic anatomy from memory. Your visiting lecturer, who is also your personal tutor, should soon be contacting your clinical coordinator to arrange to see you. Now, the aim of these visits is to touch base with you and to see how you are settling into placement. If there are any issues, problems or concerns that may need addressing, your visiting lecturer can help to find ways of overcoming them. Now, the visiting lecturer is also interested in how your portfolio is progressing. So remember that as part of the programme, you are required to develop a clinical portfolio. These portfolios have a number of uses and they will help you to assess your current level of knowledge and skills, as well as identifying your personal development needs. Now, to do this, it is important to accumulate evidence that you can include in your portfolio. These can be used in your bipartite meetings, for example. Your visiting lecturer will be more than happy to review your portfolio with you and make comments and suggestions on what to include and what not to include. So please remember to bring them along with you when you meet with your visiting lecturer. The on-call rota for academic support starts next week, as it is the start of the season where people start to take their annual leave and engage with research and scholarly activity. Rest assured, though, that there will always be an academic member of the medical imaging team available throughout your clinical placement. Yours truly will be carrying the phone for the first week, followed by other members of the medical imaging team in rotation. If you have any urgent issues that need to be addressed, please ensure that you call the on-call phone on 0752 818 3964. I wanted to share with you an inspirational video on YouTube by Dr. Kate Granger, now an MBE, who is responsible for the Hello, My Name Is campaign. Now, this video really gets over the importance of the campaign and the little things that you can do as a student radiographer to improve the experience of your patients by treating them simply as human beings. Now, this campaign is as relevant now as it was when the campaign was first launched a few years ago. Now, this was demonstrated today when I was at a local hospital as a patient in the cardiology department. Now, I have to say that the lady who examined me was very nice and very pleasant, but she didn't introduce herself to me at all and what her role would be in my examination. I was basically asked to undress behind a curtain before being hooked to an ECG machine. Now, I have to say I've had similar experiences as a patient in other hospitals where the lack of introduction seems to be endemic, sadly. We all seem to be far too busy these days to connect with other people, and particularly with our patients. The video by Dr. Kate Granger is half an hour long, but well worth spending the time to watch. I sincerely hope that it would encourage you all to always introduce yourselves to the patient and set a high standard of care to all those people around you that still haven't got the message. In fact, why don't you all send me a picture of yourselves, a selfie, supporting the Hello, My Name Is campaign that I can then tweet and incorporate into a future video podcast. I will start the ball rolling for you, and I will make the Hello, My Name is flyer available to you all so that you can selfie yourselves and send your pictures to me either via email at p.walker-birch@tees.ac.uk or via Twitter at @tu_MScDR. If you want to get other members of your department involved in the campaign, then please feel free to do so. We have had some success last year with our first year MSc students and managed to get our pictures published on the Society of Radiographers website, which was really, really pleasing. Anyway, that is all for this week. I sincerely hope that you've all had a great week in clinical practice and that you are starting to settle down a little into your new roles. Remember, the first few weeks will probably be quite tiring and daunting, but don't despair. This is all very normal. There are plenty of people on hand that are there to help, guide and support you. So don't be afraid to ask for help. See you next week. Bye-bye.